The Articles of Confederation were submitted to the states for ratification in the United States on November 17, 1777. While the Articles of Confederation ultimately proved inadequate for governing the young nation, they reflected the colonists' priorities and concerns at the time of their adoption, particularly their desire to avoid recreating the type of centralized authority they had rebelled against. We compiled a list of issues the colonists were looking to avoid with the installation of a new government. Fear of centralized power. The colonies were fighting against what they saw as tyrannical British rule. They were wary of creating another strong central government that could potentially infringe on their newly won liberties. Those liberties included personal security and personal property. This fear led them to intentionally create a weak confederal government, giving it only limited powers. The Enlightenment thinking of the time led to the belief that no government should have absolute power over their lives and fortunes. State sovereignty. The Articles preserved the independence and sovereignty of the individual states, which was a priority for many colonists who identified more strongly with their state than with a national entity. Article 2 explicitly stated that each state retained its sovereignty, freedom and independence. There was a desire to preserve local control over internal affairs, including taxation and commerce regulation. Weak executive. There was no provision for a president or strong executive branch, as the colonists feared another monarch-like figure. Instead, legislative power was concentrated in a single-chamber Congress. When in session, a single president chosen annually by delegates presided, and when out of session, a committee of the states composed of one delegate from each state served as the executive. The Articles were drafted during the Revolutionary War when the priority was unity against a common enemy. A strong executive wasn't seen as necessary for this purpose. The lack of an executive branch reflected the cautious approach to creating a new government. Limited federal powers. The central government was intentionally given very limited powers, mainly focused on conducting foreign affairs, declaring war, and managing postal services. This allowed states to retain most of their autonomy. Under the Articles, Congress held all the central government's power. This reflected the colonists' belief in the importance of representative government and their distrust of executive authority. Equal representation. Each state had one vote in Congress, regardless of population size, which appealed to smaller states. This was a contentious issue, with larger states arguing for representation based on population. Smaller states viewed equal representation as crucial to protecting their interests and preventing domination by larger, more populous states. They feared that proportional representation would lead to their voices being overwhelmed. Under British colonial rule, each colony had generally been treated as a separate entity. The one vote per state policy was an extension of this familiar arrangement. Wartime necessity. The Articles were drafted and adopted during the Revolutionary War, when the need for some form of unified government was pressing, even if imperfect. They served as a wartime instrument, providing the fledgling nation with legal and administrative scaffolding to navigate through the uncertainties of the Revolutionary War. The Articles helped to legitimize the budding nation in the eyes of the world. This was crucial for gaining international support and recognition during the war. The Articles gave Congress the power to appoint officers in the military and regulate armed forces, which was essential for managing the Continental Army and coordinating the war effort. Preservation of local control. The Articles allowed states to maintain control over most of their internal affairs, including taxation and commerce regulation. This aligned with the colonists' desire to avoid recreating the type of centralized authority they had rebelled against. Different colonies had varying degrees of local governance and autonomy under British rule. This diversity made local control a key issue in maintaining each colony's unique identity and interests. Many colonists identified more strongly with their individual colonies than with a broader national or imperial identity, making local control a matter of loyalty and cultural identity. Compromise solution. The Articles represented a compromise between those who wanted a stronger central government and those who favored more state autonomy. The drafting process was characterized by vigorous debate and compromise among delegates with divergent interests and visions. Experimental nature. As the first attempt at self-governance for the new nation, The Articles were seen as an initial step that could be improved upon later if necessary. They provided a framework for governance during a critical period, facilitating diplomatic successes, territorial organization, and the cultivation of a collective identity among the 13 sovereign states. These reasons reflect the complex political landscape of the time, balancing the need for unity with the desire to preserve individual state rights and liberties. The Articles of Confederation, while ultimately replaced by the Constitution, played a crucial role in shaping the early United States and influencing its future governance structure.